how's it going, guys? Welcome back to our final Around the CHL episode of season number 32. If you guys know me, you know I always like trying to find ways to improve on things, and there's no better time to go out there and do that than during the off season for LG. So I do have a little bit of an idea here for Interleague play. If you guys wouldn't mind listening to that later in the video, I'd very much appreciate that. But we're going to go out here and we're going to start off with what's more important right now, which is the Memorial Cup starting next week. So we're going to go ahead and do some real quick predictions here. And number one, Shawinigan, my apologies, but I don't think you guys have the depth here. Avery departed, and I haven't been a fan since. Fourth place for you guys. Not a bad place to finish, though, regardless of the end of the season. Moncton, it's been a great story. It's been a great run. I've loved watching all of you guys' playoffs games. But again, I just don't think you guys have seen the competition quite like you're about to see here in the Mem Cup rounds here. So I'm giving you guys third place. Great season. No, nothing to be upset about for you guys. But that's going to leave us with Vancouver versus the Owen Sound Attack for the Memorial Cup. I've been saying Owen all season, and I would say Owen hands down here if it weren't for one thing. That's the beta. Good time to have a good old beta tuner, am I right? Most important week of the season. The beta, in my opinion, it benefits offensive teams. I don't think I know anyone that loves hitting that LT button more than those boys on Vancouver. That's back. Another thing back is going to be tripping. Not only are you going to be able to LT and move around a lot quicker, it's going to be a lot harder to go out there and get the puck off their sticks without tripping them. Again, that obviously benefits the offense. Owen Sound is still about as locked down defensively as it gets, but there's going to be a learning curve going into next week. A learning curve, again, that's going to benefit the more offensive team in Vancouver. If Owen can adjust, though, they can avoid the penalties. I still think they can take care of business here against Vancouver. And what is this, their second member in 3 seasons? I think it's going to happen. All right, so something that pertains to more of the league other than them 4 teams is the LG expansion. We've seen it now. We've seen the owners list revealed. And I'll admit it, I was one of the rare ones who thought an expansion was a great idea. It seemed like something that was great. LG's ultimate goal is to go out there, you know, grow as quick as possible, grow as much as possible, and understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. We can't be mad that LG's trying to become as big as they can. It appears, though, we're going to be adding an additional 16 teams to the CHL, which, if you did not know, is an additional 272 players that now get a chance to play 3 games a week. Well, not get a chance, they have to play 3 games a week or they got to get ECU'd. I think that's great. I know some people are going to be mad because there isn't enough quality D-men or forwards out there for the CHL. I mean, whatever. Welcome to the CHL. If you want high quality players, you move up to a higher league. That's just how it works. The CHL is supposed to be that league for the new players, the guys that might not be as good at the game. It's the job of the manager in the CHL to go out there and help those players get better. But here is my problem with this one. PlayStation expanded last season. The PSNers added 10 teams. Not 16, they added 10 teams. A lot of the owners, managers, whatever, they told me, they was like, we expanded, but we had like 2 active TCs. And that's where the problem comes in, because PS4 is more popular than Xbox for NHL. At least that's what the numbers are suggesting for LG. There's like, what, 300-ish more signups right now for LG for PS4 than there is Xbox. Now, if PlayStation expanded last season with only 10 teams and was struggling to get TC players, I don't know how this turns out for Xbox, because, like I said, we had less signups and more roster spots to fill. Essentially, numbers-wise, this means every team gets 4 less TC on their team, which, when you think about it, what do you got, 15 TC or so? Not a big deal. But that's where we have to consider that's 4 less active TC per team. The last thing we want to have is, you know, 8 TC on your team, 6 TC, whatever it is, and none of them are active, and none of them answer, and you don't have anybody to fill in, and all of a sudden you're taking forfeits, something that might be more common for a bad team because, you know, the players, harder time for them to show up when their team's losing compared to teams that are good. But regardless, it's a bad thing to happen either way, to have no TCs available and your team has to forfeit because you don't have somebody to play. But here's what I want to talk about. This is kind of my little sales pitch idea to LG. Whether they like it, they want to run with it, they don't want to like it, it's not a big deal. But I was thinking about interleague play. I know it's been talked about casually. I don't know if anyone's really brought it up in depth or even talked about it in depth, but I'd like to propose an idea here. So hopefully we have a bog or someone listening, they'll come out here, hear me out, whatever. If they don't, not a big deal. You know, not going to hurt my feelings. I just thought it'd be a good idea to throw it out there. First off, I understand why Interleague's not in there. Got to get that out of the way real quick. They don't, you know, they want the league to be as real-life hockey simulation-like as possible, so I understand that. But at the same time, exceptions have been made in the past. The Memorial Cup, for example, the most important thing in the CHL is not replicated like it is in real life. So I think we can make some exceptions. Having it be a real-life sim is important, but what's just as important, if not more important, competitiveness. Being the best in your league, whether that be the CHL, the A, the NHL, whatever. And looking at the CHL, you can say, and please do not take this out of context, I do not mean this in any extreme way at all, but it is a little bit of luck of the draw when it comes to the CHL. But not only that, you could argue right now the best 2 teams in the entire CHL are Hamilton and Owen. But guess what? Only one team out of those two gets the chance to prove that. Unless, of course, you know, the other one wins the Mem Cup lottery. But I go out there and I say luck of the draw because you can, especially in the WHL, get gifted an easy schedule. Get put into a division with 4 bad teams. We've seen that happen. What is that? Is it the Seattle division? That's 3 years in a row, 3 seasons. Where Tri-City they got stomped on by the other division. I think that, I don't even know, I'm going to make sure that's the right conference. I should be looking this up, but I'm not. They just got stomped on by the other division because they just, you know, with the WHL, you play the same teams in your division every single week, at least on that side of the conference. Now the schedule's even more messed up where you play them even more. So if you play 4 really bad teams every week, that's obviously going to inflate your win-loss record. And you go out there and say, well, that team's not elite, they're just good because they play the same bad teams every week. But at the same time, you know what that team could be saying? It's not my fault we only get to play bad teams every week because simply put, they're not given a chance to play other teams. But when you go back and you look at the Owen Hamilton thing, I mean, you could say they're the 2 best teams in the league, but how can you prove it? Who have they played outside of the OHL besides themselves? Neither one of them's touched the team in the W, the Q. You can't really say the QMJ is the best, the WHL is the best. They've never played each other. No common opponents, period. And I think that's where you have to look at it. Like, you can't look at one team and say they're better on paper when they have 0 common opponents to compare it to. Until the Memorial Cup round, obviously. But, you know, who knows what goes on in playoffs from then and there. And at the end of the day, you can look and say, well, Interleague play is not going to get Owen Sound and Hamilton both in the Memorial Cup. That's not going to help anything, but it does add to the competitive edge, the interesting aspect, the things people want to, you know, read into on LG. Like, you know, you look at points per game or something. Like, oh, how did this guy fare? Maybe he's playing in a trash conference. Maybe he's playing the same bad 8 teams every week like the WHL schedule set up. Now you can look and say, well, he went and tried to play in the OHL. He tried to play a couple ECHL teams, and they clamped him down. Maybe he's not as good as he seems. But you can't really, like I said, that's one of the things where you can't really prove it if they're all playing in the same conference. They're playing the same competition. And something else interesting about that is maybe you get to the Memorial Cup round, you get to these 4 games, and all of a sudden you can look at home ice advantage and whatever else not based on, you know, how you did against that conference during the regular season. Something that might be a better gauge than just going against straight off points, where right now I think it's kind of crazy how you can go and judge Memorial Cup and say, well, this team won the Presidents, they deserve they deserve home field advantage or whatever. How did they earn home ice advantage against this team that also had 110 points? You had 2 more points than them, but you never played the same teams. How can you possibly prove, you know, bringing it up again? You're the better team and you deserve home ice advantage. Another thing's tiebreakers. The President's Trophy winner is a big deal. Was it this year it was tied? Was it Hamilton and St. John's? And whoever had the highest row regulation wins ends up getting the tiebreaker. Wouldn't it be nice to say, hey, Hamilton beat St. John's in a regular season game this season? They win the Presidents, they get the tiebreak. Compared to saying, oh, let's see who had the most regulation wins against teams neither of them ever played. And then my final pitch here, maybe this one speaks LG's language a little bit more. What else does Interleague play do? It brings more engagement to the site. There's a lot of casual players out there who only follow their conference. I was one of those guys at one point in time. There's a lot of guys that couldn't tell you who, what, when, where, whatever, who's winning what conference, who's on that team, what team it is, because they don't play those teams. It doesn't pertain to them until the Memorial Cup if they ever play them. But if you go out there and say, hey, you got to play teams in this conference this season, all of a sudden they want to go and spend more time on LG and go and check out their opponents from the other leagues now. More time on the site's a good thing, right? And here's the tricky part, obviously, and that's scheduling. How do you do it? How do you do this scheduling? If it's something LG would seriously consider, I'd probably be willing to go out there and go into further depth into this. But obviously, for the simplicity of this video, I'm just going to try to make an easier example out of this, and we'll use the QMJ for the example. They play essentially every team in their conference 4 times a season, with the exception of, what, they play a few teams 5 times, I think? If I'm not wrong, that might be the divisional teams they play. If we take one of them games away from every single team, they play each team 3 times. Every team would have an additional 17 extra slots to play for games. Technically 21 if you're counting the 3 teams they play more than 4 times. But obviously you do want to go out there and you want to play your divisional teams more than the rest of the league if you can. So we'll go ahead and leave 4 teams for those divisional games. And again, then, you know, you can go out and say, well, you play your division 4 times, the rest 3. So you still have that balance there. So that leaves 17 games. And obviously now with the ECHL, we have 3 conferences. So if you do want to make it easy, you go out there, you find a way to make that 17 games, 18 games. Shouldn't be too difficult. Take away 1 other game. But what that does is that leaves you the ability to play 6 teams from every single league outside of yours. 6 versus the W, 6 versus the O, 6 versus the ECHL. You get it, right? That's not everyone, obviously, but that's what? A third of the league for most of them? 6, a little under a third, I have to say. 18 teams, 20 teams. It's a little bit under a third, but it's still a good testament to how good you can play outside of your conference and whatever else not, right? It's still going to give you something else to talk about and compare when it comes to who's the best team in the league. And as far as scheduling those 6 teams, I guess one of the easier ways to explain it would be if you think of the NFL. One season, every AFC North team plays every NFC North team. The next season, they play every NFC West team. You know, they don't play every single team in the NFC. They can't. They play 16 games a season, so they play 4 out of, what, 16? Now, I don't know how difficult something like that would be to program, but LG could obviously just keep it easy, keep it static, where they just play the same 6 teams outside of their conference every single season. Then, for example, we'll use Armada. Their interleague schedule would look a little bit like this. OHL, they play Owen Sound, they play Guelph, they play London, then they play at Mississauga, at North Bay, at Niagara. That's 3 teams from the OHL Eastern Central Division. That's 3 teams from the OHL Western Midwest. That gets 3 teams from the Western Conference, 3 from the Eastern, and then you're taking it from each in respective division. Then you go to the WHL, play Vancouver, Victoria, Prince George, then go play Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, Hamilton. You get the gist of the story. Then if you want to alternate opponents every season, you can. If not, keep it the same 18 teams they play out of conference every season. To me, it's not a big deal whether they play the same 6 teams or not, because the teams are going to be different every single season, talent-wise, for the most part. As long as teams are getting that chance to play common opponents, I think that it helps. It helps in making the league more competitive, going out there and saying, well, we played every single team in our league, instead of saying we played, what, 30%? Not even. Now it's technically like 25% of the league you got to play all season. I don't know. Maybe it sounds good in my head, and it sounds ridiculous on paper. I thought it was an idea, something I'd pitch out there. Maybe there's other ideas out there as well. I just thought it was something interesting to pitch out there. I'd like to hear what you guys are thinking on that one, but otherwise, that wraps up this season's Around the CHL, I think. Not really sure what we're going to do for Season 33, but I'm glad you guys watched this season's worth. Thank you guys all for watching this season. Good luck to everybody in the draft. Good luck to everybody next season. Good luck to the teams in Memorial Cup still. And thank you guys for watching.